The UEFA Champions League is back this week, and Matchday 4 is filled with some of the most exciting games of the season. If we take a look at Tuesday's fixtures, we have Napoli taking on Eintracht Frankfurt, PSG taking on Bayern Munich, the marquee matchup Liverpool taking on Real Madrid, and Juventus taking on Sporting CP. If we take a look at Wednesday's matches, we also have Qarabag taking on Chelsea, Manchester City taking on Borussia Dortmund, Club Brugge taking on Barcelona, and Ajax taking on Galatasaray. Let's take a look at all 18 games from Matchday 4 to see which fixtures are the most exciting and which ones might fall by the wayside. So the first game of Tuesday night is going to be Slavia Prague taking on Arsenal. Now this is going to be a really interesting game to watch. Slavia Prague are going into this with a must-win mentality. They come away with 2 draws and 1 loss in their first 3 games. Arsenal, on the other hand, have been really dominant to start the season. They've scored 8 goals altogether across 3 games and conceded 0. They've kept 3 clean sheets. Their last game against Atletico Madrid on Matchday 3 is actually insane. If we take a look at this upcoming match here, it's going to be a really close one, I think. I think Arsenal obviously have the talent and the manpower to win this game. But if we're taking a look at the table, they're currently sitting in 4th place, so a win could probably propel them to 1st in the league, which would be huge for them. Slavia Prague, on the other hand, haven't really done so good to start off the season. They only have 2 points. They're currently sitting outside the playoff spot, so this will probably feel like a must-win match for them. So my prediction for this one is going to be a 3-1 victory for Arsenal. I think it's going to be smooth sailing for the English visitors. I don't think Slavia Prague really have much of a chance in this one. So the next game of the day is going to be between Napoli and Eintracht Frankfurt. Now this one is going to be really interesting because both teams have had 2 very interesting starts to the season. Napoli honestly haven't looked too great. They come away with a 2-1 victory against Sporting CP on Matchday 2, but their most recent 6-2 loss to PSV Eindhoven was honestly one of their most shocking performances in recent times. If we take a look at Eintracht Frankfurt, on the other hand, they've been really up and down as well. So they came away with a thrilling 5-1 victory over Galatasaray on Matchday 1, but then suffered 2 back-to-back 5-1 defeats to both Atletico Madrid and Liverpool. So they really are going into this match feeling like they need to win this game. If we take a look at this upcoming game here, I think it's going to be a pretty close one. I honestly don't think there's going to be much separating these 2 sides. I feel like on paper, these 2 teams look pretty solid. I think they match up pretty well in this one. I don't think there's too many. There's a few injuries to a few key players here. Obviously, Kevin De Bruyne is out and Lukaku is out, but I still think it's going to be a pretty close game. For this one, I think I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw as my prediction. I don't think either side will be able to break one another down, but still, it should be a pretty interesting game. Now, the next game of Matchday 4 is the one that I'm most looking forward to, and obviously that's going to be PSG taking on Bayern Munich. Now, if you take a look here, PSG have had an absolutely incredible start to this season. They come away with 3 wins from 3 matches. Their last game against Bayer Leverkusen was a 7-2 thrashing, where they played extremely well. So they're doing really good right now. If we take a look at Bayern Munich, on the other hand, they've also come away with 3 wins from their first 3 games. They've been pretty dominant in all of them. They kept a clean sheet in their last one against Club Brugge, so both teams feel like they can go into this game and get a victory. So this is going to be really crucial for both sides. If we take a look here, it looks like a pretty standard lineup for both teams. Obviously, they're playing their best players, and they're going with pretty interesting formations here. I think the only thing here is Desiree Doué is going to be out for this match, and I think that might change a little bit, but I feel like Bradley Barcola can probably carry the load there, and so can Mayulu. For Bayern, I think they're going to do pretty well. Obviously, if they can get a win at PSG away from home, that's going to be huge for them. And obviously, for the league phase table here, both teams are literally at the top right now, so whoever wins this one is going to have a huge advantage. I think for this match, though, I think PSG might have what it takes. I think my prediction for this one is going to be a 2-1 victory going PSG's way. I think they just have too much momentum at the moment, and Bayern just won't be able to stop them. Moving on to the other marquee matchup of the day, we have Liverpool taking on Real Madrid. Now, this one is going to be huge for both teams. Liverpool, obviously, as you can tell, they've come away with 2 wins and 1 loss in their first 3 games, but considering that they've won only 1 of their last 7 matches across all competitions, things are incredibly shaky for the English side right now. If we take a look at Real Madrid down here, they've come away with 3 wins from their first 3 matches. Their last game against Juventus was pretty close. It was only a 1-0 victory, but still, they've been really dominant to start the season as well. So that's why this one is really big. I feel like Liverpool have to win this game, not only for their Champions League hopes, but also just for their record at the moment. I think if they lose this game, there's going to be some huge questions around Arne Slot and his team. So that's a really big deal there. Obviously, Real Madrid are one of the strongest teams in the world at the moment. They just came off a win against Valencia in the Spanish league, so they're doing great, honestly. In terms of injuries, yeah, that's the problem with Liverpool right now. They have a bunch of injuries to really key players. Obviously, Real Madrid are dealing with a few injuries as well, but on paper, I still think they are the stronger side. But honestly, I think this one might not come away with a win. I think this one is going to be a lot closer than people think. I think Liverpool are going to play with a tenacity that like makes it feel like they really need to win. For this game, I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw going both ways. I don't think either side will be able to break one another down, and hopefully for Liverpool's sake, they get a point from this match. So next up on the list, we have Juventus taking on Sporting CP. So this is going to be a really interesting game to watch out for. Juventus are still looking for their first win of the season. They've come away with 2 draws and 1 loss in their first 3 matches, so it's been a really poor start for them. If we take a look at Sporting on the other side, they came away with 2 wins from their first 3 games. Their first game against Kairat was pretty dominant, and then they suffered that 2-1 defeat to Napoli, but then they redeemed themselves by beating a really hot Marseille side 2-1. So honestly here, it's kind of hard to tell which way this game is going to go. Both teams are coming into it with 2 very different sets of momentum, 2 very sets of different records, but on paper, like, the teams honestly look pretty solid. I think Sporting CP have what it takes to at least contain Juventus for the first 60-70 minutes. I don't think it's going to be very easy to break through their back line. When it comes to injuries, I think Juventus are definitely dealing with a lot more injuries at the moment than Sporting are, but I think they still have enough manpower to get the job done. But will this game end in a victory? Will Juventus finally get their first win of the season? I'm honestly not too sure. They don't seem that convincing with their recent play, but they did just hire a new coach, so maybe that'll change something. For this game, I'm going to go with a 0-0 prediction. I think it's going to be a lot closer than people think, and Juventus just won't have what it takes to break down the Sporting defense. So now we're moving on to another game that's going to be between Atletico Madrid and Union St.Gilloise. So there's a lot going on this one. Atletico Madrid suffered a very unfortunate loss to Liverpool on Matchday 1, but then they had a really good game against Eintracht Frankfurt, and then they lost again to Arsenal on Matchday 3. So it's been a very roller coaster ride for Atletico to start off the season. For Union St.Gilloise, on the other hand, the Belgian debutants haven't really done that good. Like, they did get a 3-1 victory over PSV on Matchday 1, but then 2 back-to-back 4-0 defeats to both Newcastle and Inter Milan at home isn't really a good sign for things to come. So if we take a look at their next game, that's going to be taking place on Tuesday, on paper, Atletico are just the much stronger side. Like, they just have, I think they have a better attack, a better midfield, better defense. I really don't think Union St.Gilloise match up to them in any way here. So it's going to be really hard for them to come away with anything from this match. I don't think there's too many injury problems here, but like, they're both going into it with a pretty solid record in the past 5 games, but it just doesn't feel like the Belgian side will be able to contain Atletico for 90 minutes. With that being said, I'm going to go with a 3-1 victory going Atletico Madrid's way as my prediction. I just think they're the stronger side on paper, and they should have what it takes to get the job done. So moving on to another game from Matchday 4, we have Tottenham taking on FC Copenhagen. So there's a lot going on in this one as well. Tottenham have had a very interesting start to the season as well. They haven't been as dominant as most people thought they would. They came away with a scrappy 1-0 victory over Villarreal on Matchday 1, but then a 2-2 draw against Bodo Glimt and a 0-0 draw against Monaco has kind of stalled their momentum at the moment, in my opinion. If we take a look at Copenhagen, they're not doing that much better either. They're still looking for their first win of the season. They've come away with 1 draw and 2 defeats so far. Their last game against Borussia Dortmund was pretty shocking, to say the least. I think they could have done better at home. So both teams are probably going into this game thinking like they need to win to really get their campaign off and running. On paper though, I still think Tottenham are the better side. They're going to be playing this game at home as well, which I think will give them a huge advantage. I don't see Copenhagen doing much. Like, they have a few good players. They have Moukoko, they have El Yunusi, they have some talent there, but will it be enough to really stop Tottenham if they're playing up to their best standard? I don't think so. Both teams are dealing with a huge amount of injuries at the moment. Like, some of Tottenham's best players are out, some of Copenhagen's crucial players are out as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the teams perform without some of their best players. Obviously, Tottenham aren't going into this game with the best record. They've only come away with 1 win from their last 5 matches. But even so, I think they're still the better team on paper. They have more momentum at the moment, and I think they can get the job done. So with that being said, I'm going to go with a 2-0 victory going Tottenham's way in this match. It should be pretty smooth sailing, but it should make for some pretty interesting football. So now we're moving on to one of the most interesting games for neutral fans out there, that being Bodo Glimt taking on Monaco. So obviously the Norwegian debutants are still looking for their first win in the Champions League. They've played pretty well for their standards. I'd say they came away with a 2-2 draw against Slavia Prague and another 2-2 draw against Tottenham. But they did suffer a pretty hefty 3-1 loss to Galatasaray in their last outing, so it's been pretty tough for them to start the season. Taking a look at Monaco though, they're also looking for their first win of the season. They haven't played too well. They've conceded 6 goals already. in 3 games. So it's pretty interesting to look at this game because I don't know what angle to attack it from. I really don't know which team has the advantage here. I feel like they both have very different play styles and they both are going to play a pretty similar formation here, but do they have what it takes to break one another down? I'm not entirely sure. On paper though, Monaco have a lot more injuries to deal with at the moment. I feel like some of their best players are out right now, so maybe that's why they haven't been playing too well. And if we take a look at it, both teams are coming into this game off the back of a loss. Bodo Glimt lost to Villarreal 3-1, and Monaco lost to Paris FC 1-0. So there's a lot at stake in this match, and for my prediction for this one, I think I'm going to go with a surprising 2-1 victory going Bodo Glimt's way. I think they're going to finally get their first win of the season at Monaco's expense. So the final game of Tuesday night is going to be between Olympiacos and PSV. Now there's some interesting things to talk about here. Olympiacos have had a really awful start to this season so far. They've only scored 1 goal, and that was in their most recent 6-1 loss to Barcelona. PSV, on the other hand, are coming off an incredible result in their last game. They had a 6-2 victory over Napoli where they looked like an impressive team. It finally felt like everything was clicking for them. But then again, they lost a chance to win against Bayer Leverkusen, drawing 1-1, and their first game against St.Gilloise was pretty tough. So, how are both of these teams lining up going into this game? I think that PSV, honestly, on paper, PSV are the stronger side, but I don't think it's going to be like a thrashing. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I think Olympiacos playing at home will be looking for some redemption, but I don't think they're going to get it in this game. I think PSV are honestly the better side. Taking a look at the injury report, there isn't really too many injuries for either team, so they're probably going to be playing their best players in this one. PSV are on a 5-game win streak right now, and they played really well in those games. Obviously, Olympiacos are doing pretty well, apart from their 6-1 loss to Barcelona. So for this game, I think my prediction is going to be a 1-0 win going PSV's way. I think it's going to be pretty close, but I think they have the advantage in this game as well. So now we're moving on to Wednesday's matches, and the first game of that night is going to be between Qarabag and Chelsea. So obviously on paper, I think everyone can agree that Chelsea are the stronger side here. But Qarabag haven't been bad to start this season. They came away with a thrilling 3-2 win against Benfica on Matchday 1, and then a pretty solid 2-0 win against Copenhagen on Matchday 2. Now, obviously, they suffered their first loss of the season on Matchday 3 to Atletico, but I think they still have some momentum going into this game. Chelsea, on the other hand, they've been alright. They had a pretty rough game against Bayern Munich on Matchday 1, but they did redeem themselves against Benfica on Matchday 2, and they did have a really good outing against Ajax on Matchday 3. So they're going into this game with a ton of momentum as well. If we take a look at this specific match, they're going to be playing in Azerbaijan, so I think Qarabag have a bit of an advantage here. Chelsea are dealing with a few injuries at the moment. Going into this game, Chelsea had a pretty shocking loss to Sunderland back in the Premier League, but apart from that, they've been pretty solid. I think it's going to be, honestly, a rout in this one. I don't think Qarabag are going to put up much of a resistance for most of this game. I think Chelsea are going to go into this looking for a win. So with that being said, I'm going to go with a 5-1 victory going Chelsea's way. That's my prediction for this one. Should be pretty smooth sailing for the English visitors. The other match on Wednesday night that's going to be taking place a bit earlier is going to be between Pafos FC and Villarreal. So for this game, Pafos obviously aren't doing too well to start the season. It's their debut season in the Champions League, and they've come away with 2 0-0 draws and a 5-1 loss to Bayern Munich. I think they really had a chance to win against Kairat Almaty in their last game, so that's going to be a really big deal for them. Villarreal are doing okay. Like, they still haven't won their first game either. They're coming off the back of a 2-0 loss to Manchester City on Matchday 3 that they played at home. So for them, they're also going to be looking for a win, and I think this is going to be the best chance for the Spanish side to get a win in the Champions League this season. Going into it, they're coming off the back of a 4-0 win over Rayo Vallecano, while Pafos haven't won a game since their 4-0 win over Ethnikos Akmas. So there's a lot at stake here, I think, but I don't think it's going to be a thrashing in this one. I think it's going to be a closer game. I think both sides have a lot of talented players when it comes to their play styles, and their play styles are so different, so it's going to be hard to tell in this one. Quick look at the table though. Both teams are near the bottom, so this is going to be a huge deal for both of them. I think it's going to be a close game, and my prediction for this one, I'm going to go with a 1-0 win going Villarreal's way. I think they are going to win their first game of the season, and this one leading Pafos in the dust. Moving on to one of the most lopsided matchups of the day, we have Inter Milan taking on Kairat Almaty. So here, I think it's pretty obvious how this game is going to go. Inter Milan are having one of the best runs of form to start a Champions League campaign in recent memory. They've come away with a 2-0 win, a 3-0 win, and a 4-0 win in the last 3 matches. So they really are on fire right now. Kairat, on the other hand, you can't say the same about them. They've only scored 1 goal in their first 3 matches, and they've conceded 9 so far. So it's been pretty rough for the Kazakh debutants, but honestly, I think most people would have expected them to start this way. Taking a look at this specific match, it's pretty obvious to tell how this one's going to go. I think Inter Milan are going to be firing on all cylinders in this game. They do have some injuries here, and Kairat are also dealing with some injuries at the moment. They also haven't won a game since their last match against Kilizar Petra Pavlovsk, so it's been really tough for Kairat even in the league as well. Inter, on the other hand, apart from their 3-1 loss to Napoli, they've been pretty good so far. So yeah, this one, there isn't really a whole lot to say for this game. I think it's going to be a dominant 4-0 victory for Inter Milan on their home turf, and I don't think Kairat will really have much of a chance in this one. Moving on to the marquee matchup of Wednesday night, we have Manchester City taking on Borussia Dortmund. Now, this one I'm really looking forward to. Manchester City, they've gotten off to an okay start in the Champions League so far. They come away with 2 separate 2-0 victories against Napoli and Villarreal and a 2-2 draw against Monaco. So they've been doing all right. Borussia Dortmund have been really interesting to watch so far. I think they've been one of the best teams in the Champions League to watch this season. A 4-4 draw against Juventus, a 4-1 win over Atletico, and a 4-2 win over FC Copenhagen. So, taking a look at this game here, I think it's going to be a closer game. I don't think Borussia Dortmund are going to be scoring as many goals in this one. I think Manchester City's defense is going to be strong enough to contain them, but I think they're still going to have a few chances. I think, honestly, Manchester City will be the ones with more scoring chances in this game. In terms of injuries, there aren't a whole lot. I think, apart from Nico Schlotterbeck and Niklas Sule for Dortmund, it should be pretty straightforward. Manchester City are doing pretty well, apart from their 1-0 loss to Aston Villa in the Premier League, and Borussia Dortmund suffered a 2-1 loss to Bayern Munich. But apart from that, both teams are kind of going into this one with a lot of momentum. I think this will really separate them in the league phase table. If we take a look at a quick look at the table here, they are both in the top 8, and they're only 1 position away from each other, so this is going to feel like a must-win game for both teams. So my prediction for this game is going to be a 3-1 victory going Manchester City's way. I think they're going to be the dominant side in this match, and I just don't think Borussia Dortmund have what it takes to keep up with them in this game. So now we're going to talk about Club Brugge and FC Barcelona. So this one I'm obviously looking forward to as well. Club Brugge had a solid game on Matchday 1 against Monaco, but ever since then it's been a 2-1 loss to Atalanta and a 4-0 loss to Bayern Munich, so they're really looking for a win in this game. Barcelona, on the other hand, they're coming off the back of a 6-1 victory over Olympiacos. The only real test for them so far this season was PSG on Matchday 2 when they couldn't beat them in that 2-1 loss. But apart from that, they've been pretty solid in the other games they've played. If we're taking a look at their Matchday 4 encounter here, apart from Club Brugge playing at home and having home field advantage, I really don't see them doing a whole lot in this game. Barcelona are doing pretty well at the moment. Obviously, they just lost the El Clasico to Real Madrid, so that wasn't the strongest showing for them. Club Brugge are also doing pretty well over here, but the problem with Barcelona right now is they have injuries to like all of their key players. As you can tell here, Pedri's out, Gavi's out, Rafinha's out, so like they're kind of playing not with their B team, but not with their starting lineup, of course, but even then they still have an elite side on paper here as well. But I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I think my prediction for this one is going to be a 2-0 victory going FC Barcelona's way. I just don't think Club Brugge have what it takes to stop them. So the next game on Wednesday night is going to be between Benfica and Leverkusen. Now this is going to be a must-win match for both sides. Neither team has started off too well to start the season. Benfica literally haven't gotten a single point yet. They've come away with a 3-2 loss to Qarabag, a 1-0 loss to Chelsea, and a 3-0 loss to Newcastle. So they're sitting near the bottom of the league table right now. Leverkusen, on the other hand, they also haven't won a game, and they're coming off a 7-2 thrashing to PSG at home as well. So for both teams, if they don't get a win here, this could honestly be talking about early elimination from the league phase table. On paper, I think they match up pretty well. Like I think they're pretty even in terms of manpower, of offensive firepower. Their defenses are pretty good, so like it's kind of hard to tell which way this one's gonna go. But when it comes to injuries, Leverkusen do have a lot more injuries to deal with at the moment to some of their best players as well. Going into this game, Leverkusen are off the back of a 3-0 loss to Bayern Munich, so that's not a great look for them. Benfica have done a little better in the Portuguese league, but either way, they're going to be absolutely hungry for a win in this game. My prediction for this one, I'm going to go with a 2-1 victory going Benfica's way. I think this is the match where they finally show us what they're made of at Leverkusen's expense. Moving on to another game that I'm really looking forward to, it's going to be between Marseille and Atalanta. So for this match, these two teams have honestly been pretty impressive to start the Champions League campaign so far. Marseille had a really good game against Ajax, but then they suffered two 2-1 defeats to both Real Madrid and Sporting, but they didn't look that bad in either of those defeats. I think they played pretty solidly. Atalanta, on the other hand, they did suffer a 4-0 loss to PSG, but then they bounced back with a 2-1 win over Club Brugge. And then they had a really disappointing 0-0 draw with Slavia Prague, where I thought they could have won that match. So both teams are pretty even on this one. I think in terms of results, I think in terms of the teams that they're fielding, I think in terms of where they sit in the league table, like this is about as even of a matchup as you can get, which is why I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good game for the two sides. When it comes to injuries, both teams have a solid amount of injuries in this one. I think without Timothy Weah, that's going to be a big loss for Marseille. But either way, I think it's going to be a good game. The only thing here is Atalanta, like both teams are going into this game with some pretty shocking runs of form. Atalanta haven't won a match in at least 5 attempts. Marseille did get a 1-0 win over Auxerre in the league, but like both teams are not playing that well right now. So when I say it's about as even as they can get, that's what I mean. Like I really don't know who has the advantage here. If we look at the league table, they're both in a playoff spot right now, but there's only 1 point separating them and 1 position separating them. So this is going to be a huge game for both teams. My prediction for this one, I'm going to go with a 3-1 win going Atalanta's way. I think the Italian visitors will have what it takes to win this match, and Marseille will be scrambling for the entire game. The next game of the day is going to be one of the best matches for neutral fans out there, and obviously that's Ajax taking on Galatasaray. So, Ajax have had a pretty shocking start to the Champions League campaign so far. They're still looking for their first point. They haven't won a single game yet. A 2-0 loss to Inter, a 4-0 loss to Marseille, and a 5-1 loss to Chelsea has been a pretty awful start for the Dutch side. Galatasaray, on the other hand, are doing a little better. They've come away with 2 victories in 3 games. They did suffer a pretty shocking 5-1 loss to Eintracht Frankfurt on Matchday 1, but a good performance against both Liverpool and Bodo Glimt have them in a playoff spot at the moment. So going into this game, the big talking point here is that Ajax need a win. If Ajax lose this game and they have 0 points from their first 4 matches, I don't even think getting into the playoffs is going to be possible at that point. Both teams on paper look pretty solid. I think they match up pretty evenly in this one. Obviously, I think Galatasaray with Osimhen on attack, Sané in the midfield, they are a bit stronger, but I think it's still pretty close. There's a few injuries for Ajax here, and İlkay Gündoğan for Galatasaray won't be playing. In terms of team form, Ajax haven't been doing very well. They only have 1 win in their last 5 games, while Galatasaray have at least 3. So my prediction for this one, I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw going both ways. I think it's going to be a thrilling match from start to finish, but there won't be enough for either team to grab a victory in this game. So the final game of Matchday 4 is going to be between Newcastle and Atletico. So the English side honestly have a lot of momentum at the moment. They played well in their 2-1 loss to Barcelona on Matchday 1, and then they came away with a thrilling 4-0 win against St.Gilloise and a 3-0 win over Benfica. Atletico, on the other hand, got off to a slow start. They had a 2-0 loss to Arsenal on Matchday 1 and a 4-1 loss to Dortmund on Matchday 2, but they came away with a pretty dominant 3-1 win over Qarabag at home on Matchday 3. So, going into this game, both teams have a lot of momentum. Both teams have what it takes to come away with a win in this game, but I think it's going to be close. I think this game, it's going to be hard for either team to break one another down. I think on paper, they're both evenly matched. I'd say that Newcastle have the advantage here, especially on attack for sure. But I think it's going to be a lot closer than most people think. In terms of injuries, Athletic Club do have more of the injuries on their side, but it shouldn't be too bad for either team. Going into it, both teams are coming off the back of a loss. Newcastle lost 3-1 to West Ham, and Athletic Club lost 3-2 to Real Sociedad. So this is going to be like a big game for both teams. I think both teams need a win going into this game, not only for the league table, but for their momentum as a team moving forward. So with that being said, I'm going to go with a 1-0 victory going Newcastle's way. I think it's going to be a great game from start to finish, but an incredibly close matchup between 2 evenly matched sides with only 1 goal in between. So these are the 18 games going into Matchday 4 of the Champions League this week. I think there's a lot to look forward to here. I think there's a lot of good matchups between 2 evenly matched sides. We have some good marquee matchups to look forward to. There's a lot of storylines I'm going to be following as well. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the league phase table rounds up after these matches, and it's going to be really interesting to see where every team lands with only 4 games left to go. But what do you think of Matchday 4 in the 2025-26 Champions League season? Which game are you most looking forward to, and are there any matches that you think will have a crazy result? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more football content, tier lists, and everything in between, and as always, I'll catch you next time.